Conservative Christians know that you're not trying to force their children to be gay. They're not confused about that. I see a lot of people engaging with conservative Christians, trying to explain to them that, no, I'm not trying to force straight children to be gay. I'm just trying to create a safe space so that gay children can survive. They know that. That's what they have a problem with. They don't want their gay kids to have a safe space. They believe that homosexuality is a sin. They do not want their children engaging in sinful lifestyles. And the biggest tool they have to control their children is shame. What we're doing by creating safe spaces, by showing children representations of queer families and diversity of lifestyles, by hosting goddamn pride parades, is we're normalizing LGBT identities. And that is what's enraging them. They know we're not forcing it. The problem they have is that we're normalizing it. And they don't want their children to feel safe being gay. They want it to be scary. They want it to be shameful. And this is no big secret. They tell us this to our faces. Every time a conservative Christian is like, well, you can do whatever you want, but why do you have to shove it in our faces? Do it behind closed doors. All of that is be ashamed of what you're doing. Hide it. Do it in the shadows. Because that's what they do with their little secret sins. They preach about sexual morality, but then watch porn in the shadows. Or they cheat with the church secretary. They're not perfect, but they have the decency to be ashamed of their actions. And they understand that some of their kids might be gay, but they don't want those children to think that it's not shameful. So when they call you a groomer, remember, they're not using that term the same way that we do. They're not saying that you are ingratiating yourself to or manipulating a child so that you can take sexual advantage of them or so that you can sexually harm them for your own pleasure. They're saying that you are creating an environment in which their children will feel safe engaging in sexual sin. And then when you factor in vertical morality, it makes even more sense. They don't trust us because from their perspective, our morality is just wishy-washy. It's just subjective, based on our own feelings and just what's popular around us, because they see us changing our minds. And they think that means we have no standards. Of course, what they fail to understand is that it's not that we don't have standards, it's that our standards are different. And unlike their standards that are based on authority, ours are based on harm and processed through the lens of critical thinking. So with new information, we're capable of changing our minds. So when we look at a sexual proclivity like homosexuality, we're able to say, does it harm anyone? I mean, I know that traditionally we have not liked this, but does it actually harm anyone? And when we see evidence that it doesn't harm anyone, we can change our minds. But their morality does not allow for that because their morality is based on authority and not on harm. So even if you have evidence that no harm comes from homosexuality, they're not going to change their mind because we're just humans. We can't trust logic. We can't trust our own human sensibilities. We can't trust our ability to reason even. We just have to believe what God says, and God says it's wrong, so therefore it's wrong. And because things are wrong, not because of harm, but because God said it, all sins end up being the same. On this scale, we can compare things based on the amount of harm that they do. But when harm doesn't factor into your morality, you're not comparing things like that. I mean, after all, if all sins earn you the same punishment, then all sins are equally bad. And so they equate homosexuality and pedophilia, because after all, they're both sexual sins. Things that God has told you not to do. And side note, they only even believe that pedophilia is wrong in the Bible because they think that God has condemned sex outside of marriage, and therefore it qualifies as sex outside of marriage. There's no special category even for pedophilia because their God didn't give a shit about that. But all that to say, their morality can't make space for, the difference between cheating on someone and pedophilia, because their morality is based on this and not on this. And that is how you get to them calling us groomers. Because a groomer is someone who's ingratiating themselves to a child in order to sexually manipulate them. But if there's no difference in their mind between pedophilia and homosexuality, if the standard is just God condoned and God condemned, then in their minds, we are groomers. We're no different than what a pedophile groomer does. It is incredibly twisted. But until we realize that we are functioning at an entirely different moral system and worldview than these people, we are never going to get anywhere with them. We simply do not speak the same language.